Hey, it's Hammer Time. Today we have a special episode of Hammer Time. We're here with our great friend, Senior Executive at the U.S. Chamber, Rob Engstrom.
Great to see you, Glenn. Thanks.
Great to see you. And my God, what a view.
It's a beautiful view. We are fortunate and blessed. And you know, the U.S. Chamber was founded 107 years ago by state and local chambers who actually provided the funding to build this building. So the thing that matters most to us is the power of the Chamber Federation. So it's an honor to have you back. So thanks for coming.
Well, Rob, I appreciate your leadership with the Federation. Can you maybe talk about the power of the Federation and how that's assembled and some of the issues that the Federation has worked on?
Absolutely. So immigration and trade are essential to what we're trying to accomplish. Also, the talent pipeline, education reform, and infrastructure funding, usually infrastructure funding, as well as the talent pipeline, tend to be the top two issues amongst the Federation. We are blessed to have a network of 1,600 state and local chambers, including the Arizona Chamber, thank you very much, who really help us put a local face in talking about the local impacts of federal policy. So those are just 3 or 4 issues that I think are clear and present right now, and then expanding on the great work and the results, the tangible results from the tax cuts.
Yeah, and Rob, and at first I just want to say, in my book, there's no better person in the country, I'm serious, in terms of reaching out to the chambers across the country, coming into our states and our communities and talking about the virtues of the free market system.
Well, it's very
than Rob Engstrom.
Well, that's very, very kind of you, Glenn, but a deep affection and respect for the Arizona Chamber and your leadership, and it's a partnership that really spans and transcends a number of different issues in the political arena, of course, but also in the halls of Congress and the regulatory agencies.
When we're talking about the jobs bill and the tax cuts, I mean, we're at a unique period in this country's history where it's the first time in my lifetime, maybe really in dozens of years, where there are more job openings than people to fill them. You talk a little bit about the effects that you see of that monumental bill and the role of the U.S. Chamber.
Well, it was really a partnership between the Chamber Federation, the U.S. Chamber, and our members who've really stepped up and grown this economy. The economy is roaring by any measure, and our job, I think, collectively is to make sure that that continues. And it also creates a challenge for us, right, on the other side, which is really finding what that talent pipeline looks like across industry, across geography, and that's really a key priority for the Chamber Federation, but also for the U.S. Chamber moving forward.
I know that a big issue set for the Chamber has been regulatory reform. And a lot of people will say on the business side, the work that the U.S. Chamber has done with the administration and with this current Congress has been as important, maybe even as the tax reform, in terms of getting those animal spirits of business going.
Absolutely, and it's been a priority of ours. We've really shifted from the previous administration's approach, particularly on labor policy, energy policy, healthcare, and financial services, in the light of day in the halls of Congress, but then pivoting to the administrative and the regulatory agencies. And this is an area where there's been tremendous success across industries, across the membership, across geography, really helping remove the threat first, then creating certainty, and then expanding the economy's reach for companies of all sizes across America who are now really contributing to the overall success of the American economy.
One of the things I love about the U.S. Chamber, and I've sort of stolen this a little bit in Arizona, I mean, chambers are really, we're the party of business. We want to see good policy, and we'll work with Republicans and Democrats. And now we have a divided government. Can you talk a little bit about how that will affect all the work that the U.S. Chamber is going to do in 2019?
Sure. I think, first of all, the stated goal of the U.S. Chamber's political program is to really reestablishing a bipartisan and governing middle. And if you look back in American history, and Glenn, you know this very personally, some of the biggest things that have gotten done economically and otherwise for our country over our history have occurred when both parties are invested in the outcome and the result. And that's why divided government can actually be a catalyst to helping ensure both parties get the credit for those common sense policies.
On immigration reform, I mean, it took about 30 years to get tax reform through, but the last major immigration reform was with divided government, a Republican president, Democrat House. Do you see a possibility for some sort of compromise to get all the different aspects of immigration reform signed, sealed, and delivered?
Well, look, I think that there is, I'm optimistic and bullish on immigration reform. And private conversations with members of both political parties in the House and in the Senate, I think that there's a recognition and an acknowledgement that we need to retain the talent from the smartest people that really want to come to America to add to our diversity, to add to our growth. And that's really, I always think about it in the inverse. Imagine if the inverse was true and America was not a magnet that attracted the smartest people from all over the world who want to contribute and be part of this country. That's a strength for us. I think we ought to value it, and it impacts every part of the American economy.
No, and I live this, being married to an Israeli who's now a U.S. citizen. The love and appreciation for this country that my wife and her family have for this country, it's inspiring to me as a second or third generation American.
Well, absolutely. My wife came from El Salvador and came up for college, and then came back for her graduate degree, and then is working now in the Washington D.C. and the Virginia area. And so, to me, very personally, I appreciate the impacts of what that means personally and professionally, and the passion that these folks have who want to come here and contribute to the economy. I think it's a strength.
By the time this airs, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement will probably be signed. Can you talk a little bit about the trade agreement and the importance of making sure that the agreement stays trilateral and we continue to trade with our friends?
No, absolutely. And I think the U.S. Chamber's international division is actually the largest division now at the U.S. Chamber, really reaching new markets, bringing in and exporting, obviously, goods and services. Trade is a huge priority. We are blessed with an incredibly talented team. John Murphy, Myron Brilliant, my friend Rob Schroeder as well, who is they've been great partners to help in this process, but also to really engage the Federation. The Arizona Chamber is a shining example of that leadership, and I know you've been a leader nationally on the U.S. Chamber's Chamber of Commerce Committee of 100, which are the top 100 leaders of chambers from all across America. You've been a national leader on that. We're grateful for it, and we think we need to continue to drive free trade agreements. As you know, the first trade agreement for the United States, much better than I do, was signed in the 80s with President Reagan in Israel. And so we need to expand that because 95% of the world's customers live somewhere else outside of the U.S. So it's a priority for us all the way through.
It was a great privilege to be on the U.S. Chamber's trip with you to Israel, which Israel now has become a world tech superpower. And the U.S. Chamber has done an incredible job exposing chamber executives across the country to what's going on in Israel and to look for these collaborative arrangements.
Really, really enjoyed that trip. We brought, as you know, 17 chamber execs, women and men of chambers from all over the country to really listen and learn about the special relationship that we enjoy on every level with Israel, and to really learn about R&D, to learn about innovation, to learn about cyber, to learn about water, and obviously the impacts of national security and energy development. And so this is a special relationship, and it's really something that we value.
It was incredible to see, because for many people, I think including yourself, it was their first trip. For me, I've been there many times because I'm married to an Israeli, and it just was such, the meetings on tech were so valuable. And even though I a few times immobilized myself on the hummus, was still able to really get an incredible amount out of all these meetings with these new companies that are doing all these disruptive type technologies.
Well, one thing that I know, that I ate a ton of hummus while I was there, and we had a lot of our colleagues like Stephen Wagaspak in Louisiana, who also himself enjoyed a tremendous amount of hummus. So it was a great collegial trip, but it really allowed us to see firsthand what trade looks like, when the rubber hits the road, and what the innovation economy can do to benefit countries all over the planet.
I'm going to move a little bit to the political side. No one understands the political scene like this guy. This was a very interesting election where the House of Representatives flipped, but the Senate became not just a few more Republican seats, but more conservative, even in terms of some of the retaining seats for Republicans. Can you talk a little bit about this past election cycle?
Yeah, it really, I think we're going to be learning about this election and the last one for a generation to come. I think voters really did pay attention to the local impacts of federal policy, and it's been rare that we would have, a first-term, a midterm election with the economy going so strongly, and our fellow citizens so passionate on issues really all across the economic spectrum. And so we're going to listen and learn and really figure out what worked and what didn't work, but we're already up and and moving and planning for 2020. And there's an election tonight for senator, a runoff in the state of Mississippi, which will mean another seat for the Republicans or not, depending upon how that turns out. We were proud to endorse Cindy Hyde-Smith in that election.
And Rob, I know you've spoken at university campuses, because I do think one of the issues when you take a look at the people who are going through our universities, are bright young people, but there is a flirtation with a different form of government, socialism, that always ends in tears. Always ends in tears. Any thoughts on what we could do to get our younger people exposed to some different programming?
Well, it's an essential argument that we have to compete and win on, and I have spent some time in the past year, over 17 years now, at the U.S. Chamber, trying to show up and visit at college campuses from the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville all the way out to Cal Berkeley earlier this year, and learned a lot about what people care about. And what I know is that there is more commonality and agreement on a lot of the issues that we're talking about here today. If we can get beyond the sound bites and get beyond some of the things that happen in the political time and really focus on driving sustained economic growth, I think we have an opportunity to do that now. With the results speak for themselves, but then also plan and win the hearts and minds of generations to come.
Even though the economy is doing better than it has in a long, long time, there were still, it still didn't quite cut it. I mean, we saw a lot, districts all across the country, red states, blue states, and suburban America flip.
Right. So a lot of the swingiest districts on the House side and across the country that typically tend to make up a majority one way or the other are in those so-called purple, pink, districts that really do land in suburban areas. And there's also been, of course, tremendous migration from the north and the east to the south and the west. Arizona is a shining example of being a magnet of a place that, just because of the quality of life, because of the people, because of the diversity, because of the university system, this is a place in Arizona that people want to be. So making old industry new again, but also really valuing innovation and figuring out what those next industries look like is a top priority.
Rob, I just want to thank you for your leadership. I could speak on behalf of my chamber brothers and sisters. We're all proud to follow you, and we're looking forward to the years ahead.
It's a true partnership. We're grateful. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Rob.
it.
Thank you.